Alrighty, y'all, we are back for the next part in the series. We are talking about my lighting, specifically all the lights from a great company called Diode Dynamics. They're an awesome company based out of the US, and we're gonna kind of get into this because, fun fact, I have, I believe, a total of 34 different lights from that company. So it's pretty safe to say I'm a big fan. All right, so I do want to preface all of this by saying I am sponsored by Diode Dynamics. I have been for about a year and a half. But I also want to preface that by saying I have spent a lot of my own money on these lights. I actually spent, well over like $2,000 on kind of those lights right there, well before I was ever sponsored by them. Kind of proving, obviously, that I really do actually appreciate this company and the lights that they produce. It's some pretty top-notch quality and really awesome output. So really awesome lights. I am sponsored, but don't let that sway you too much in my review, because I bought these all on my own money way before any of that. So yes. So I said I've spent a couple grand on, the lights on my bumper. And, that's quite a bit of money for these lights. These lights aren't necessarily the cheapest lights in the world, but you're paying for amazing warranty, you're paying for amazing quality, and you're paying for versatility, kind of all the good things. These lights have, gotten me through a lot. And I had some other lights before these, but they were kind of those cheap, everybody gets them on Amazon, like Nye lights or whatever. Don't want to bash any particular brands, obviously, but they all work pretty well. They're going to give you some light, and for not that much money, you'll spend $100 and you can, get a whole bumper's worth of lights or a whole light bar on the roof and other things. And, you get a lot of physical lights for the money, but I've always found them to be lacking in output, lacking in features, lacking in durability. Just kind of like, you get what you pay for. And so spending $100 on a bunch of lights, you're not going to get that much. So spending just that much more money, you can get some really top quality stuff. So people always ask me, like, what's the first light that I should get for my off-road vehicle, whether it's Subaru, RAV4 or whatever else, or even a Toyota or a Jeep. People always ask me, what's the first light I should get? Like, should it be, the roof bar? Should I get ditch lights? What's the first light I should get? And I almost always recommend going for fog lights. These guys right here and right there. Fog lights are going to be my go-to recommendation always, because they are the best bang for your buck. You're going to get the most use out of them. Usually you're talking about street legal fog lights, especially with Diode Dynamics. Everything that they make is street legal for fog lights, that is. I say street legal, and you may be wondering what that means, like, oh, can't I run any light on the road? And realistically, definitely not. A lot of these lights are brighter than the sun, it feels like, and, you don't really want to be riding down the road with that for somebody else to experience. So once again, street legal fog lights. These things are really amazing bang for your buck, because you're going to be able to use them all day long, every day, in inclement weather or just your day-to-day driving, right? These things are something you can get in a bunch of different options and really use them throughout the year. Fog lights are designed specifically for like that low cutoff line, mostly intended to kind of cut through inclement weather like fog, rain, snow, and just also enhance whatever lighting you're getting from your headlights. A lot of people end up with those crappy halogen stock headlights that really don't give you more than a candle's worth of light. And these things can really oftentimes be a lot brighter than just your stock headlights. And being able to do that with a street legal light like these guys, you see the SAE right there, means they're street legal. Really is pretty amazing. So definitely worth having something like this as your your first light, just because you get the most use out of it. You can use it off-road, on-road. Like I said, bang for your buck, most use out of that light. So fog lights, definitely a #1 go-to. So a company like Diode Dynamics is really cool because they make, they don't just make one kind of light. You can kind of see these are all square-ish lights, kind of the same vibe, but they're all pretty different. So you look at lights like these guys. This is their 3-inch pod light. It's called an SS3. They are super cool. Basically 4 LEDs on this unit, and pretty compact, kind of easy to have just about anywhere on your vehicle. You can kind of fit them, like on the side, on a little ditch bracket there. You can throw them, on your front bumper as like these fog lights, or those guys down there, the driving lights. And here you can kind of see these flush mounted lights. It's a little bit harder to see them back here, but super cool option for mounting. You don't have to necessarily have that big bracket that's on the other ones, but super awesome way to mount it in the back as well. And of course, I was talking about those rear lights I have back here as well. They are really cool. They're basically, these are the Sport SS3s, so the lowest power output, but realistically for your backup lighting, you don't necessarily need much more than this at all. This is significantly brighter than anything you would have in your taillight. So definitely awesome to have these back here as flush mounted LEDs. Something really cool about them is just like the SS3s in the front, these also have a backlight option. But rather than going with amber, I was able to throw the red backlight on these and tie those in directly to my brakes. So I'll throw some footage of that in now, so you can kind of get an idea of just how awesome these are, and more functional beyond just a really bright, kind of losing focus here, really bright backup light. They're more than just a backup light. So I'll throw that footage in now. And here you can kind of get a look at them. Obviously I'm kind of going downhill, so I'm riding the brakes, but you can see that red backlight. So we talked about these SS3s, the kind of standard or more basic size, kind of universal. Anybody can use these. They can kind of figure out a way to put them anywhere. Awesome lights, really cool. They come in 3 different power options, ranging from their Sport line, which is what I have in the bumper, to their Max line, which is kind of their highest output, highest intensity, basically the brightest you're going to get out of this kind of 3-inch style pod light. Super awesome to have that versatility, the 3 different options. Like I was saying back there, this is kind of the standard bracket that you use for mounting. Kind of just a swiveling bracket that you can kind of adjust the angle of your light, and just mount it with a basic bolt nut right down here. This is a security nut, but basic bolt nut to mount it to whatever bracket or rack or whatever you have. So kind of the standard way, makes it really easy to figure out mounting for most things. And then we take a step down in size to these. These are the SS2s or SSC2s from Diode Dynamics, and they are basically the same design, same basic form factor. You can kind of see right down here, they got these metal fins in the back, and this basic cover over here. And basically this one you can see is just 2 LEDs rather than the 4. So it's the same width dimensions as the SS3, but cut in half, basically. So you get a little bit narrower form factor, something a little easier to mount, say, up here on my roof. So, and it's getting a little bit darker, so I'm gonna have to change that exposure up a little bit. But basically these guys, I have them on my roof, up on my roof as kind of my scene lighting. They kind of cast out, the light to the side. So as I'm driving around, I can kind of get an idea of what's to the side of me a little bit more. Or if I'm at camp, I can, have them aimed at my campsite. So kind of a nice option for that extra bit of light. I still have them loose, so I can kind of rotate them and position them wherever I need to say hit the fireplace when I'm trying to start a fire, or you know, cover up camp, so I can kind of see where I'm walking without having to use a flashlight the whole time. So super cool option, kind of an extra way to have some extra lighting on the side of your vehicle, directly on the side, rather than using ditch lights, which kind of usually aim outwards still, kind of in that direction. So getting that extra bit of light out into here. So I'll input some footage of these guys in action right now. Alrighty, y'all. People ask me why I chose fog pattern for my perimeter side lighting, right? Well, for instance, at camp, right here we have a fireplace off to the side. I can adjust and aim my lights to focus on where I'm working, you know, getting firewood going. Like right there, versus, and have it actually be bright instead of a flood pattern that would just kind of give me a little bit of light everywhere. This way I can really get the light where I need it most. So now that we've covered the SS3 or SSC2s, these guys up here, I will get into the awesome rock lights that you can kind of see this purple glow underneath me. They are this kind of a newer offering from Diode Dynamics. They're maybe only a year old or something like that. I think I've only had them on the vehicle for 6 months or something like that, so they're really new still, but really pretty awesome quality. They're basically kind of the same shape as an SS3, kind of that, you know, 4 LED puck kind of design, but a little bit smaller, much thinner. Tons of different mounting options, from like zip ties to a screw in the middle, or whatever. But one of my favorite ways is using right here, if I can grab it. This is their magnetic kind of mount. So you basically put a screw through it, and then this whole thing is a big, super strong magnet that, you know, it's not going anywhere. And so you can kind of mount this kind of anywhere. For me, it works out really well to have it up under my bumper to kind of give me that little bit of light down there in front of my tires. Most of these other ones are zip tied on, or even screwed on. I think this one up in here, you can kind of see that guy is directly screwed to the wheel well with a self-tapping screw, and it is really solid on there. And you know, it has this kind of cool protective cover on it, that kind of plastic cover, so super easy to replace if it gets super damaged or whatever. And you know, just really a really durable light. Now, one of the cool things about these is they're not just, you know, purple lights or whatever, they are RGBW. So I'll kind of put that in right now. So here you can kind of get a look at some of the different colors. They don't necessarily come across on camera very bright, but you know, kind of get you an idea of what you got. Also, I kind of forgot to mention in the video, I think, that the white SS5s actually have a multicolor backlight, so you can kind of select between like 7 different colors. So I kind of threw a few of them together into this bit of B-roll, so you can see like the teal, the red, the green, blue, purple, whatever. But you get a lot of options, a lot of customizability for whatever you want for your build. So a lot of cool features with these lights. So as you can see, they have kind of that RGB W functionality. So rather than just being the purple that I have there earlier, you can kind of cycle through the color wheel and kind of choose any color within this range of red, green, blue, purple, orange, you know, magenta, teal, whatever color you choose. But the biggest thing about that is you actually have true white as well. So like right there for a second, you kind of saw it. On a lot of the Amazon style like rock lights, you kind of just get RGB function, and you know, the white that you get out of it is kind of a mixture of the colors, and really it's not the cleanest white, and it's not very bright usually. And they have the actual white coloration here, which is really awesome to have like a true white, especially when you're like, you know, when you're working on your car. A lot of times I end up with a broken part on trail or whatever it ends up being. And I use these lights as my work lights. So when I'm, you know, fucking or messing around with my suspension, you know, kind of down in here, and I'm on a trail, I just turn these bad boys on, and I can kind of see everything that's going on in here. Gives me a lot of extra lighting without having to like fuss around with a headlamp or something like that. I have that lighting on hand at all times, which is really, really awesome. And you know, like I said, with that magnetic light up here, I can always move it because I gave it a little extra bit of quick cable, and I can, you know, get myself even like an additional bit of lighting to, you know, work around with. So super awesome to have. Super awesome to have all that extra capability, or that extra versatility rather, with all these lights, being able to kind of throw the light around wherever I need it, and having it everywhere as well. So really awesome having the RGBW functionality. Alrighty, and now that we've kind of talked about these lights a little bit in terms of their functionality and whatnot, and like the options you have to use them, you know, the different colors and all that awesomeness, why would you actually really need rock lights? You know, people say, oh, look at that underglow, whatever. It's really not just underglow, you know, like I'm not like their standard WRX with rainbow underglow underneath just for the fun of it. You know, don't get me wrong, I love having all these lights, and it is super fun having the, you know, the purple lights kind of matches the rest of these lights, which we'll get into these purple lights here in a minute. But it's not really just for looks, it's for functionality. A lot of times here in the P&W, like I say, it gets dark really, really quickly in the winter. I mean, we're talking 4 o'clock and it'll be dark. It's, you know, it's getting pretty dark now. It's, you know, reaching to dusk. And we end up doing a lot of trails in the winter in the nighttime. And so having some lighting underneath you allows you, but more importantly, your spotter to see what's going on as they're spotting you through obstacles, over rocks, you know, through whatever. It kind of gives that extra bit of help for your spotter to get you through whatever situations are going on. I'll try and input some cool footage of me going over an interesting obstacle now. Hopefully, maybe I have some, I don't know. But anyways, they really have that super awesome use. Their, you know, their real intended functionality is to give you that extra lighting underneath your vehicle when you're going over those dark obstacles that, you know, you need to see where you're going to hit. So rock lights are super functional. It's not just for looks. They really do help quite a bit. I mean, you can see just how much light is back here, especially. So if I'm, you know, trying to go over something, somebody can totally see the big rock that's going to hit my differential or my control arm or whatever else it ends up being. All this light really does help quite a bit with all of that. So super awesome having all these lights. Alrighty, now that we've talked about the SS3s, the SS2s, and my rock lights, there's kind of only one major light left to talk about, at least one design of light, and that would be these SS5s. These are the kind of the 5-inch, the largest option from Diode Dynamics, outside of their, 50-inch light bars or whatever. But these guys, kind of bright on camera, but in person it's a lot more kind to the eyes. But these they're like 5-inch, give or take, pod lights from Diode Dynamics. They're the same design as the SS3s, except rather than being 4, LEDs, they're actually 9 LEDs right in here. So you're getting a ton more light from, a good bit bigger pod light, and especially for like needing to provide a ton of lighting from a smaller space. These work out really, really well. So they're really cool. They come in a couple different power options, just like the SS3s, but instead of having a Sport, Pro, and Max kind of power level, these only have 2 power levels, at least for now. They have the Sport and then the Pro power output. And all 3 of these lights on my bumper, these are all the Pro output, and then all 7 on my roof are the Sport output. And this makes a big difference, more than you would expect. It's not just a power output thing, it is an intensity thing. And I'll explain that now. You'd think I'd want more power on the roof, but yeah, I'll get into that in just a second. But anyways, back to these pros on the bumper. I'll get it a little bit closer so it's not as bright. You can kind of see these lenses look a little bit different between this guy here in the middle and this guy here on the right, or the left, I guess. You can kind of see how these are all pretty much smooth, a little bit dusty, but all very smooth lenses, whereas these have kind of some bumps and ridges and whatnot. And that comes down to the optic that these lights have, and we're gonna get into that right now. So these optics are kind of a special part, or a special aspect of the Diode Dynamics lights. They're called the TIR, or Total Internal Reflection Optics. And rather than like a lot of the standard lights that you might be getting that just have a big reflector, like a big cone behind the LED that kind of pushes the light out, these have a bit more design to it. You can kind of see, it's hard to explain. It'll be easier to look at one of the diode videos talking more in depth about it, but the gist of it is that rather than losing a bunch of light output by using a reflector design, the TIR reflectors, they actually are able to lose a super small amount of the light from the LED and project almost all of the light outward. So you end up getting a lot more light output from a similar chip that you might have in another branded light. So that extra bit of design intended to help give you just that much more light over the competitors. So but this one right here, the smooth or smoother optic versus this guy right here, this would be kind of their spot pattern. So intended to send out a very tight beam as far forward as you can get, as intensely as you can get. Whereas these guys with the ridges, this is the flood optic pattern. And then this one in the middle, you can kind of see is kind of little lines. That's the driving optic. And then over here, you can see all of the little lines. That's the fog optic, intended to send out really wide beam. So giving this, you can kind of see wide, super wide, super flood everywhere. You're gonna send light in every direction. And then this one is intended to send light relatively down road, but in a little bit wider pattern than this, which is basically just a big circle of light going straight down the road. So kind of cool to see the different options, the different optics that they have. They have a bunch of them, and they offer them to you in every single one of these lights, the SS3s, the SS5s, and the SSC2s. They give you these options across the board. You can kind of pick between different optics. So super cool to have these options. But alrighty, now I was talking about how these two lights have different power levels. They have the Sport, which I have all up on the roof, and I have the Pro patterns down here. And the difference between these is, these Pros are putting out 90 watts of power. So basically about a 10 watt bit of power from each of the LEDs. So each of these little, LEDs is putting out about 10 watts of power, give or take. Whereas on the Sports up here, we're talking about closer to 40 watts for the whole unit. And so, you can imagine that's, give or take 4 or 5 watts per LED. So quite a bit less physical draw, like power draw from your battery. But even though they have, that much less power, you have to look more at the design of the optic, or rather the design of the LED that they're using. So it might be a less powerful LED, but it's actually a much more focused, a little bit smaller LED. And by being smaller and more focused, you can actually get a lot more intense of a light. So even though these guys have, 50 less watts than the Pro models do, you in the spot optic are able to get, I want to say it's about 50 or almost 70% more intense lighting out of these spot optics in the Sport power level, just because they have a much more intense, tighter beam. So I want to say these have a 15-degree spread of beam spread, whereas the Pros have closer to a 20-degree. And so even though they have a bunch more power going through them, they're outputting a lot more light. Because of that beam that they're able to produce, because of the size of the LEDs, you're actually going to get a less intense, a less distance from this more powerful light. Seems kind of counterintuitive, But all of these kind of specs are available on Diode Dynamics website, so I'll leave that up to you guys to fully go through and look. You don't have to believe me, just I'll leave those for you guys to check through. But yeah, the pros produce less overall power or less intensity, but more light overall. So with these more powerful lights, like the Pro SS5s, I tend to recommend focusing on your flood lighting or your more broad lighting using the Pros, because you're going to get a lot more light like outward with them, because they do produce more physical light, and especially with these flood patterns, you're going to get that to be more optimized. So I definitely recommend, if you're looking at any kind of flood, or in this case, this is the combo pattern, I definitely recommend the Pros. It's a little bit more money, but they 100% are worth it. You're going to get a lot more spread, and it maybe 20% or 50% more money for these over the sports, but you're going to get well over double or triple even of the physical output. Like the usable light will be that much more usable and impressive. So I definitely recommend for your lights up in the front, or for rather your flood lighting, to go with the Pro models, because they do have the bigger chips which allow for more spread. So definitely recommend that there. So people always ask me what kind of lights I should put on my roof, or what kind of lights I do have on my roof. And my number one tip for any kind of roof lighting, especially on a vehicle with such a sloped, slanted windshield, is to always look for spot, any kind of the super directional lighting. So anything that's going to go far out into the distance rather than like a floodlight, because if you have the floodlights on the top, you're going to get a lot of light bled into the cab of your vehicle, and that just ends up blinding you more than anything, all that glare. So you really do want to focus on the more directional spotlights. Usually is always my go-to, whether it's Diode Dynamics, Baja Designs, any company, Nightlight even. I always recommend, if it's going to be on your roof, go with a spotlight. You're also going to get more usability out of your spotlights if they're up on your roof, because they're going to have a lot more height that they can travel, and so you're going to end up getting even better distance than if it was on your bumper. So if it's on your bumper, it's a lot closer to the ground, it's going to end up getting cut off by the ground in front of you, whereas if it's closer to the roof, you can get a lot more distance. So always, if you're getting roof lighting, look for spot optics, as they're going to kind of be the best fit for up on the roof. Unless you're talking about perimeter lighting, then definitely go for something more like a flood, or in my case, I went with a fog pattern. So definitely spots for the front. Perimeter, you can go more flood because you want more coverage, but distance is the name of the game when it comes to on your roof. So distance, go spots. And whereas I say go with distance lighting on your roof, you want to go with the most flood lighting you can on your front bumper, or even on your ditch lights. That's kind of where you want to put that flood lighting. Ergo why I have my set of combo lights. These kind of, you'll see in a little while, they really produce quite a bit of flood lighting. They're going to cover a broad range in front of your vehicle, and do some really awesome stuff for you. So really recommend these guys for getting all that lighting out everywhere around you in the front, and then up there, that's going to be the lighting that gets you that distance as you're traveling quicker and over larger distances. That's going to be more important for you than these guys. But for a lot of these tight trails, these guys come in handy, because you need to see everything around you. Definitely recommend that for anything on your bumper or forward lighting lower on the vehicle. Next we have my dish lights. These are combo optic in the Pro power output, kind of that mid-range price for the SS3s. They're around $300. So a little bit of money, but definitely useful and a good amount of light. It's actually the same power output or wattage usage as the Maxes, I believe. But because these also, like the Pro SS5s, have a larger LED, they produce a little bit wider spread. So in my case with these ditch lights, I'm trying to kind of shine off to kind of where this tire is on the Santa Cruz. I'm kind of wanting to spill a lot of light to the side. So having a little bit more spread, even though I went with a driving optic at the top, you know, and that flood at the bottom, having that wider spread from the Pro LEDs is definitely useful and very intentional on these ditch lights. And I kind of keep putting these off, or rather not talking about them, but these down here are my driving optic SS3 Maxes. So I have the fog lights in the Max as well as the driving down here on the bumper. And I talk about driving pattern, and people kind of get, you know, a little bit confused as to what that really means. It's not going to be as flat as your headlights, kind of covering, you know, across like 4 or 5 lanes. This is going to be kind of more in tune with what a high beam would be, so it's going to travel, you know, pretty far down and be pretty bright and cover maybe 2 lanes, maybe 3 lanes of width, but really far down the highway. So really awesome lights nonetheless, and super useful when you need that extra bit of like high beam. They're not street legal in the max power output, but in the Pro and the Sport output, they are street legal high beams. So definitely a really cool option if you need some extra high beam too. So really cool there. And another one that I kind of have been glazing over would be this guy right here. This is the Spot SS5 Pro. These guys are really cool in that they, while they produce a lot of overall light, like I was saying, the Spot optics are usually better on the Sport lights because they're going to get you a lot more direction, a lot more intensity. These guys gives you still a pretty broad light, but very focused down the road, so you end up getting quite a bit of light, just not that same distance. So, you know, once again, having it on the bumper kind of works out pretty well because it sends a lot of light close to the ground a pretty good ways. So really cool. So the really cool thing about the Spot SS5 Sports is that they have a measurable intensity, and we're not talking about how these things are that much more intense than, say, the Pros. They are so intense that they can actually be measured up to a mile of distance. You're not going to be seeing a ton of light from that distance, you know, and obviously you as an individual might not be able to see what's a mile away from you in a straight line, but that really does show how intense these lights are, that they can travel that far, you know, across with that intensity. So really, really cool. And something I cannot leave out, even though they aren't a Diode Dynamics product, is this chase light I got on Amazon, or rather from a friend through Amazon. It is a super functional, super cheap LED light bar or flasher chase bar from, I can't remember the name of them, but you just search chase light bar on Amazon and you should be able to find this thing. But makes for a really awesome, you know, emergency bar, whether I'm, you know, on trail and something goes wrong and you know, you need to alert people that are coming up on you on the trail, or if it's really dusty conditions, snowy conditions, and you're leading a group. It's always awesome to have that backlighting so somebody can see you as they're coming quickly around the corner. That gives them a chance to stop and not run into you, helps people keep track of you. Having something like this is super important. You can kind of see it's pretty dark there in the middle, and the really cool thing about that is it functions as an additional set of reverse lights. So I've had it wired up to the Diode Dynamics in the bottom, and I'm able to kind of, whenever I turn those on and have the light bar turned on, these additional reverse lights turn on, and I really get just that much more awesome reverse lighting. So kind of super awesome rear lighting functionality as well. And pretty dang bright. So I will say, you know, for $100, this thing has a lot of functionality. The quality is not very good, and you're going to get a lot of rust and oxidation. It's kind of hard to tell, but 3 of these LEDs are kind of burnt out and aren't quite as bright as they used to be. So you do, once again, this is a demonstration of you get what you pay for. And thankfully, it looks like I've heard rumors that Diode Dynamics will be releasing something similar to these in the future. So that'll be something to look forward to. But for now, I do have this pretty cheap but functional chase light bar in the back. And now we're gonna get into a bunch of B-roll, kind of showing you each of these lights and you know, the combinations in which, you know, I tend to run them or whatnot. You know, first we're kind of gonna go through each of the lights individually, really show you just what they are capable of on their own, or rather in pairs. You know, some of these are in pairs, but you know, you get to a point where you have so many lights and, you know, you don't really ever necessarily use just one of them at a time, but you know, after showing you guys kind of how each of these runs individually, we'll get into you know, these in combination with each other. So, you know, driving in fog, the combo patterns, the spot patterns. You know, there's definitely instances where I'm usually running around with usually just my fog lights maybe, or fogs and ditch lights. And maybe I need to see a little bit further ahead of me, so I'll throw one of the like more distance-oriented lights on, depending on the terrain. And sometimes I end up running all of them. You know, usually you don't need all of these lights. The full power from them, as you can see here in just a second, is pretty ridiculous. But you definitely do get to enjoy a lot of visibility, added visibility by having you know, all this combination of lights. And you know, obviously I'm showing you all these lights in combination, you know, the whatever, I think I have like 16 forward facing lights, plus all the fog light, or all the rock lights and everything. But realistically, most people don't need all that lighting. Just going for the, you know, the combination lights, the combo SS5s is usually more than enough for most people. Or, you know, even just fog lights and ditch lights, that kind of really does get you a lot of lighting. So, you know, even though I have all of these lights, they really are not fully necessary, but once you have them, you really are gonna really enjoy using them. So, you know, to each their own, you know, how far you're gonna want to take your build, but a lot of options. So, and here's kind of like an in the cab view of all the lights on. You can see how there is that bit of glare kind of coming through the windshield and onto the dash, but you know, by using the spotlights, you're not really going to get as much. Whereas with my older setups, I would get glare all the way onto the steering wheel, and you know, it's really hard to drive with. But you know, not as bad here. This is going to kind of hurt. Probably should put a warning through here, so I might do that. But basically, here's kind of like a front view or side view of what the car looks like with all the lights on. You know, the combination of amber and white really does kind of make a nice pleasing color to the eye too, let alone the fact that you're getting that dual functionality for inclement weather of having the amber or the white to choose from. And, you know, here's a bit more, just a different like parking lot, kind of some more trees, a little bit more spread, so you can kind of see just how far these lights go in each direction, and how having all of them really does fill out quite a bit more space than just one set or another. You can really see that beam from the light bar on the roof. I do actually have the lights on the roof hooked up to two different channels, so I can control the white and the amber independently. So you're gonna see that, you know, kind of right here with just the whites on, and then now just the ambers. And like I was saying, for inclement weather, you oftentimes you're gonna want to use that amber color. So I'll a lot of times use the fogs with just the yellow roof lights to kind of get me that lighting forward. But here's, you know, just some more clips. We're gonna go through, cycling through, just showing off just how intense all these lights are. But yeah, you know, they do their job, that's for dang sure. And you know, here's kind of one of the last shots I'm gonna really show demonstrating the lights, but this is kind of just from the top perspective of the car, kind of getting really that broad view, so you can really see just how far and in each direction these lights go, especially with those perimeter lights with the fog light pattern. You really see quite a bit of the terrain around you. So, and as you can see here, they're honestly super durable and waterproof and all the good things that you want from your lights. And you know, worst case scenario, you know, I've had a few mishaps. They, you know, take care of you. And honestly, for my final thoughts, I just kind of wanted to say that at the end of the day, not everybody has the money to spend $6,000-7,000 on a bunch of lights, and I totally get that. But realistically, like I said earlier, most people don't need this many lights, and just having a set of fog lights and ditch lights can really make that much of a difference for you and your time off road. So even if you aren't looking to buy and be fully kitted out like I am, really honestly, just having a couple of extra lights like these can be really important, especially for people who are off-roading in the dark like I am a lot of the time. So just going through and seeing what they have available for you is always a good option. Who knows what you end up getting, but maybe you won't even get any, but I really am just a huge fan of these lights and a huge proponent for having good lights on your vehicle. There's kind of this saying that goes around, and it's lockers before light bars, but in all honesty, especially for us CUVs or crossovers, or just people who live up in the PNW, or Alaska, anywhere that's going to be dark for a good portion of the year, if you can't see where you're going, it doesn't matter if you have the most capable vehicle in the world. So I always do recommend getting some lights as some of your first mods, because they really do help you get around. If you can't see where you're going, it doesn't matter what you got underneath you or behind you pushing you forward, because you could just be pushing yourself off a cliff. So definitely look at getting some lights. I'm a big fan. I'm a big light guy myself, so definitely take a look. If you are in the market for anything from Diode Dynamics, now is the time. For give or take the next week and a half. They're all on sale right now, up to like 30% off, which is kind of their biggest sale of the year, for Black Friday and Cyber Monday and all that. So if you're in the market after watching this video and you are looking for some lights, I definitely recommend it. So take a look and check them out and see what they got going. And for those of you who have waited till this point in the video, and obviously we're kind of watching just one of my friends, Mountain Subi, get stuck, but not important. Just thought I'd mention that because it's kind of funny. But if you've stayed to this point in the video, I do want to say I'm actually doing a giveaway. You can go over to my Instagram and check it out. But we'll actually, in partnership with Diode Dynamics, I'm giving away a pair of SS3, in whatever pattern you want, just to one lucky guy or gal who decides to enter and potentially win. So to anybody who's interested in maybe potentially getting a free set of lights, run over there. It's for my 10,000 followers on Instagram giveaway, and enter for your chance to get a set of these cool lights, completely free of charge. So send your friends over there too if you want, or not. Maybe that's strategic. Less people means more chances of winning. So. But anyways, super glad I finally got to get this video out. I know it's pretty long, and I know you guys have kind of had to go through a lot listening to my rambling, but if you stay to the end, you kind of get that extra bit of knowledge. So anyways, off till next time. So deuces.